How you guys doing today? Jason A. Kuhn here, giving you a Fight the Deception with Christian Perception news brief for May 20th, 2014. All articles discussed will be linked into the YouTube description box. We have a lot of news today. With a little time, we'll jump into it here at VentureBeat.com, how the NSA and FBI made Facebook the perfect mass surveillance tool. The National Security Agency and the FBI teamed up in October 2010 to develop techniques for turning Facebook into a surveillance tool. Documents released alongside security journalist Glenn Greenwald's new book, No Place to Hide, revealed the NSA and FBI partnership, in which the two agencies developed techniques for exploiting Facebook chats, capturing private photos, collecting IP addresses, and gathering private profile data. According to the slideshows below, the agency's goal for such collection was to capture, quote, a very rich source of information on targets, unquote, including, quote, personal details, patterns of life, connections to associates, and media, unquote. Wow, let's move on here to endoftheamericandream.com. Why does Christian persecution get worse in every country the U.S., quote, liberates, unquote? When the U.S. military, quote, liberates a nation, shouldn't it result in more liberty, freedom, and peace for the people living there? Instead, we find just the opposite. In fact, in every single case since 9/11, when the U.S. military has, quote, liberated a nation, it has resulted in the persecution of Christians in that country becoming much worse. In areas where we spent hundreds of billions of dollars and where thousands of precious American lives were sacrificed, churches are regularly being bombed. Christians are being brutally beheaded, and laws have been passed to make it illegal for a Muslim to convert to Christianity. If we were not even able to provide the most basic of liberties and freedoms to the people living in these nations, what in the world did we actually accomplish by, quote, liberating them? Just look at what happened in Afghanistan. We have been at war in Afghanistan for more than a dozen years, and yet things are so bad for Christians in that country at this point that there is not a single church left. The supposedly moderate Karzai government installed by the U.S. upholds many of the draconian laws enforced by the Taliban, including the apostasy law, fiercely persecuting those who seek to convert to Christianity, and in 2011, under the U.S. auspices, it destroyed Afghanistan's last Christian church. We find a similar story in Iraq. It is estimated that before the invasion, there were up to 2 million Christians living in Iraq. Now that number is down to less than 450,000 and is falling fast. In fact, things are so dire for Iraq's Christian community that some Iraqi Christian leaders are warning that Christians may soon become extinct in that nation. Wow, let's move on here to Infowars.com. The era of chimeras, scientists fearlessly create bizarre human-animal hybrids. Did you know that scientists are creating cow-human hybrids, pig-human hybrids, and even worse, or even mouse-human hybrids? This is happening every single day in labs all over the Western world, but most people have never even heard about it. So, would you drink milk from a cow-human hybrid that produces milk that is almost identical to human breast milk? And how would you interact with a mouse that has a brain that is almost entirely human? These are the kinds of questions that we will have to start to address as a society as scientists create increasingly bizarre human-animal hybrids. Thanks to dramatic advances in genetic technology, we have gotten to the point where it is literally impossible for college students to create new hybrid life forms in their basements. Of course, our laws have not kept pace with these advances, and now that Pandora's box has been opened, it is going to be nearly impossible to shut it. Scientists try to justify the creation of human-animal hybrids by telling us that it will help, quote, cure disease, unquote, and help, quote, end world hunger, unquote. But what if scientists discover that combining human DNA with animal DNA can give us incredible new abilities or greatly extended lifespans? Will humanity really have the restraint to keep from going down that road? Wow. Let's stay here at Infowars.com. Current sexualization of children predicted in 1932 novel. The current trend to, quote, sexualize young children, that is to expose children to sexual issues as early as kindergarten, shares striking similarities to the dystopian novel Brave New World, in which children are encouraged to start exploring sex at a young age. In the latest example of the trend, a couple of YouTube filmmakers produced a video in which they described homosexuality to children as young as 5 and asked for their opinions on the subject. The filmmakers defended the video by stating the, quote, raw opinions of children, unquote, offer, quote, incredibly valuable insight on our current society, unquote. but the youngest of these kids likely had no clue about the subject until it was explained by the producers. In a similar incident, a Kansas father of a 13-year-old girl became infuriated after discovering a poster hanging up at her school which listed several recreational sex acts, such as anal sex, for example. The school spokesperson referred to it as, quote, district-approved curriculum, unquote, but the father disagreed. Quote, this has nothing to do with the abstinence or sexual reproduction, unquote, he said. But Chicago Public Schools even went further than that by requiring mandatory sexual education in kindergarten classes. As if these incidents were concerning enough already, just compare them to The Brave New World, a 1932 novel written by Aldous Huxley, which anticipates a future society that is centrally controlled by a powerful government through the use of various techniques such as the sexualization of children. In the book, the central planners encourage the populace to explore recreational sex starting from early childhood. The intent is to remove romantic relationships by cheapening sex in order to ensure that the citizens have complete allegiance to the state and not with each other through personal connections such as families. Wow, let's move on here to Telegraph.com. Sex change drugs to be offered to 9-year-olds. Children as young as 9 are to be prescribed drugs which delay the onset of puberty as the first step towards sex change operation, according to new reports. The treatment will be offered by one NHS-trusted children who are so troubled by their gender that they may wish to undergo drastic surgery after adolescence, according to the Mail on Sunday. But the decision was attacked by critics who described the decision to offer the treatment at such a young age as, quote, horrifying, and called for an immediate investigation. Monthly injections of the drugs known as hypothalamic blockers are used to slow the development of the children's sexual organs by blocking the production of the hormones testosterone and estrogen. In boys, this prevents the voice from lowering and the development of facial hair, while in girls it stops the menstrual cycle and breast development, in which case making any future sex change operation simpler. Wow. We'll move back here to Infowars.com. Nintendo promises to push gay agenda on children. Last Week Tonight with John Oliver on HBO has given a boost to the next wave of progressive politics, the effort to mainstream homosexuality and fashion a civil rights movement around, quote, the equality of the same-sex marriage. Oliver's segment on the Me-quality campaign draws attention to push design to normalize the gay lifestyle in video games geared towards children, specifically the 8 to 13-year-old demographic. Earlier this month, the Japanese company Nintendo declined to introduce same-sex marriage in Tomodachi Life, a life simulation handheld video game marketed to children over the age of 8. Following the Me-quality push, Nintendo said it, quote, never intended to make any form of social commentary with the launch of the game. The company, however, later stated in future releases of the popular game they will, quote, strive to design a gameplay experience from the ground up that is more inclusive and better represents all players, unquote. The push to introduce homosexual marriage in video game content is part of an aggressive agenda to normalize and force cultural acceptance of a lifestyle many Americans oppose on religious and moral grounds. The progressive left has politicized the same-sex movement and has fashioned the forced acceptance of the gay lifestyle into a civil rights movement. Indoctrinating children is key to the movement, and this is why video game content is targeted. Quote, children like soft wax are very malleable, unquote, Soviet propaganda during the Stalinist period declared. Quote, we must rescue children from the harmful influence of the family. We must nationalize them from the earliest days of their little lives. They must find themselves under the beneficent influence of communist schools, unquote. In much the same way, the progressive left believes children must be nationalized and rescued from recreational or reactionary Judeo-Christian ethics in order to normalize what was previously considered aberration behavior, and the left is pushing the gay agenda into avenues of mass media, television, cinema, and video games. Wow, let's move on to the last article of the day at barbedwire.com. LGBT school teachers reveal plans to push homosexuality. What are the latest homosexual and transgender tactics according to your schools? In the school, quote, culture wars, unquote, nothing happens by accident. It is usually the result of careful planning and execution. Here's a look behind the scenes. Homosexual teachers, school officials, and education activists and their allies, along with children as young as the 5th grade, converged at GLSEN's 2014 annual conference in Boston last month. At this, quote, hands-on event, they to introduce and discuss their latest strategies for thoroughly pushing homosexuality and transgender issues and behaviors into the minds of kids. Wow. GLSEN, Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network, is the nation's largest homosexual and transgender activist organization working inside schools in all 50 states. It has set up, quote, Gay Straight Alliance, unquote, student clubs, GSAs, inside thousands of high schools and even some middle schools across the country. GLSEN's push to a wide range of psychologically penetrating homosexual and transgender program activities into the schools, such as the controversial, quote, Day of Silence. It also directly organizes and trains teachers to integrate their techniques throughout the curriculum. Founded in the early 1990s by super activist Kevin Jennings, it has a multi-billion-dollar budget lavishly funded by corporate America and private foundations. That's the last article I got for you guys today. I don't want to leave you without the New World Order quote of the day. Quote, the drive of the Rockefellers and their allies is to create a one-world government, combining supercapitalism and communism under the same tent, all under their control. Do I mean conspiracy? Yes, I do. I am convinced there is such a plot, international in scope, generations old in planning, and incredibly evil in intent. Unquote. That's from Congressman Larry P. McDonald, 1976, killed in the Korean Airlines 747 that was shot down by the Soviets. I don't want to leave you without the proverb of the day, Proverbs 28:13, King James only. He that covereth his sins shall not prosper, but whoso confesseth and forsaketh them shall have mercy. That's all the news, articles, and quotes I got for you guys today. I'll leave you off with the song I brought you in on by Disciple titled God of Elijah.